trying to accommodate again what 14 members of the board would like. So this is a very helpful discussion that I think in the development of goals need, you know, I shouldn't read 14 minds. There needs to be sort of two-way dialogue.
Yeah, and I guess I had some thoughts to that too, that I don't know, you know, I could see that I would think that, you know, the goals, while we work to have by our contract, we have to in effect set them, but I think it's important that the board, and I'm speaking a bit to the board, not just to you at this point, that we have a responsibility for, you know, accepting these as defined, and if we do want to push some things further, I think it's important for us to, you know, work as a group to do that, and I think that's implicit in also all my comments I was making there. To get to that point of having a board voice, and we're at 14.
I just want to say that that's why I wanted to have a very direct and specific conversation with the superintendent right now about these goals, because this is the time to get that in there, Mr. Madsen, okay? That's why we need to.
You want me to be more specific?
I would like you to be very specific.
Okay, I would like to have goals.
Way to get them.
Yeah, I would like to have goals surrounding basically the hiring and retention of principals. I would like to have goals.
That's under. Is that under one of the board priorities?
Like I said, I don't see how it fits under a board priority, but it is a overarching need of this district. And you know, this is me again speaking. You asked me to be specific, and I am once again just myself. You know, and a second piece would be maybe a more direct goal that does talk to the, you know, effectiveness of our director level positions within the district. And then, you know, a third piece would be, I think it would be good to have a bit more time to review and work on the diversity and equity goals to make sure that they are at a level that this district should expect. And you know, the fourth specific is related to data, but I do see that in here. You know, and I see that in different points. I don't think that really needs to be broken out. Thank you.
I think I'm picking up on the theme that Commissioner Madsen has laid out, and I also just have a general reflection to start with. And the concern is the comment that Commissioner Evans said that she thought that these were the goals for the district, the original board goals, and there's some sense of, well, I thought these were the goals for us as a board. And Jeannie, you mentioned to Dave that, or Commissioner Davidson, that yes, there was some, I'll use my term, some squishiness about what are superintendent goals and what are board goals. And as somebody who ran for this position, talking about transparency and accountability, I just feel really uncomfortable that we can't isolate this specifically is the portion of work that I, Jeannie Collins, will commit to, and it's a reasonable, you know, smart, measurable, attainable, all those smart goals that I can complete, and that's not that I will observe somebody else do the work, which I know are a part of it. But how do we as a board, in order to perform our supervisory role to the best of our ability, I think we do have to take the time to hammer this out and figure out what exactly is your piece, and then where's the boundary? Where does it stop? And then where does that become your principals and directors' roles? And then you have been authorized by the board to say, look, this was agreed, and if you principal or you director are not cutting the mustard, then it's not my doing, it's all been laid out for you, and these are the consequences. And I think that I'm just interested in you know, I'm sort of thinking about a lot of the comments that we heard last night from public and over the weeks about this isn't about scapegoating and isolating one person. The reality is the board only supervises one person, and that's you. And that's where I really do think we need to take the time to really define, if we're going to use this as a tool to supervise and evaluate the performance of the superintendent, we need to take the time to clarify exactly what is and what is not your contribution to these efforts.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connell, and I'm hoping that you can come up with some specific things that could separate out, because I think that would be helpful. Mr. Evans?
I was just going to say, I really agree with Paul. people, that's her job to do, to figure out what her pieces are and what her staff's pieces are. That would, I mean, I've been told not to micromanage. That sounds like micromanaging to me. I think that's part of what we're looking for in terms of a transformational leader, is that they have the ability to see what their piece in this is and what the pieces that other people do. And I really like what you said, Paul. I was just trying to Google the SMART objectives. I mean, there are formats for doing strategic plans that are very clear. And, you know, Jeannie, the one that you did that had the superintendent, or the goals from the board, and then the board goals, and then the goals for the superintendent from the board, and the resources and support needed. Part of the SMART objectives also identify what the outcomes of each one of those sort of action steps is going to be, and then how those are going to be measured. And for me, in terms of what Paul is saying, that becomes the tool that we have to have a dialogue with you, or that you get to support or document through data or reports that show that that stuff is actually happening. Because otherwise, that, I mean, it is kind of squishy. Is something being articulated? Well, who's articulating it, and where was it articulated, and who heard it? And
I can appreciate these comments. In fact, this is a repeat of a discussion we had last year where I actually brought in the SMART goals and was told by planning committee not to do it that way. So it is true that with each board, with evolution of this, that there is a learning curve on the part of the board as well as on the part of me. I can do it a variety of ways. And that's why it's important to hear this feedback. It might even be important for there be a board professional development session on the goal setting of the superintendent, which I know PSBA can provide. Jill, I know that you know that.
that's fine.
You know, so that the expectations on even the goal setting process is very clear, because to be now asked this year to do what I did last year, and then, you know, it's confusing as well.
Yeah, and I had a follow-up to that. So that's really unfortunate, Jeannie, but that level of detail for people who aren't on the planning committee didn't have a part in, because I think it's all of us that evaluate you, and I actually would have supported using something like SMART goals and objectives. The other thing I just wanted to say, which is a reflection, is that as I listened to you again, because we had this conversation again with you last year about, like, I don't know how to take 14 different voices and know where to go with that. I do think that that's a skill that somebody has to have, and it also, just in terms of the reflection, makes me think about the Now We Make conversation last night, and thinking about those fellows being supervised by a steering committee of 25 people. And so it's just a reflection. I think that's really problematic, and if that's been demonstrated at this level repeatedly.
Commissioner King?
Well, a few things in relation to the change from last year. I mean, one of the other issues, of course, for you in knowing how to manage all this is that the board turns over. So what happened last year, new board, you know, and I certainly recognize that. And I just want to come back to the principles, and I just want to make a statement too, because I think the public thinks that all of our conversations have to do with diversity and equity in relation to your evaluation, and how that's been rolled out in the media, and how that's been talked about. You know, all the calls that we get are all related to that. But that's not true, and I think that just needs to be said, that in our executive sessions, of which there have not been many, this is not the only topic that we talk about. And I also wanted to mention the principal hirings, because I think it's sort of related to the communication piece that Erin brought up. I feel like, you know, the hiring, recruitment, hiring, retention of principals, they're kind of out there alone. And I know you bring in people to work with them from outside the district, but one of the things I hear is that they do not get to hear from each other about what's happening in the schools, in the own schools.
They meet regularly twice a month to do exactly that.
Okay, so I don't understand why I'm hearing
Neither do
that.
I. Yeah.
So I don't know what is happening that people aren't connecting. Maybe they're not connecting on a deeper level. I don't know. But I think it is connected to what Aaron was mentioning. Teachers, I would think it would be harder.
Actually, teachers as well, particularly at the elementary level, they do a lot of cross professional development, and at the 6-12 level or the 7-12 level, it's more of a content vertical cross pollination.
I just want to make a little bit of reflection that on things like, it doesn't, I've heard some, and I never quite believe it because I know that there's a lot of things out there. People always tell you about the things that don't work, and, if you, and so I have heard similar, and I've understood what goes on. I've kind of figured, I'm hearing what doesn't work, and it just,
And to go along with that too, I mean, that woman who spoke yesterday mentioned she had just come from anti-racism training and they left, sort of with this newfound understanding, and it was this wonderful experience. So I'm curious what are they bi-monthly meetings, you said? Or they meet
once a
twice?
month I bring all the administrators together, and once a month our elementary principals and our secondary principals have a meeting.
Okay. I mean, and obviously that might be, I don't know if they're confidential meetings, but I'm curious what those kinds of meetings are like, if they're formal, is there a facilitator, do they feel comfortable talking about issues that are happening in the schools? Because as a teacher and as a new teacher and as a new board member, it's scary and you're not always comfortable. So I feel like those tools need to be in place for those teachers and administrators. And
exactly, that's what I said last night.
yeah, and so I would like to hear more about that and how that's going to happen.
Sure, and I'm happy to share agendas of those meetings as well, and there are minutes of those meetings.